It's been a really meaningful morning, beautiful morning. Thank you all for being here. So last night, when we were together here in this space, we held the Unatana Tokef poem, prayer, written about 1,000 years ago by an unknown author that has become so central to these holy days. Remembering that, I think, is helpful, right? Because we think, oh, you know, that's been that way forever. Well, the Unatana Tokef is relatively new, only 1,000 years old in our tradition. So, you know, the things that we're starting to do now, 1,000 years from now, they'll say, wow, it's been like that forever. It's been like that forever, that big groups of people come up for an aliyah. I'd like to offer that to be something that continues forever. So we held the Unatana Tokef poem, and in its first part last night, that declaration of the uncertainty, that we don't know what the year ahead holds. And I shared with you my experience of this past year and an unexpected turn that I certainly didn't see coming last year on Yom Kippur, that led to a profound journey that, thank God, I am well now from, but still it's the teachings of what it means to stand in the middle of such uncertainty are continuing to move within me. But there's a second part to this poem, this prayer, and it's that I want to share with you about this morning. And in fact, in perfect timing, my mom, just after Rosh Hashanah, said, I get that first part of the poem, you know, of the prayer that says that we don't know. I get that, we don't know. But then why does that say that thing about with teshuvah, tzedakah, tefillah, that everything we can like work with that? And I thought, and she said, I just don't understand that. I was like, perfect. That's what I'm going to talk about on Yom Kippur. So let's say, Mom, that this is for you and for everyone else. So what is that answer that the tradition has, or that this poem, this poet deeply rooted in the tradition has for us? The world is uncertain, and what's the answer? Teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah. That's the answer. Not to take it away, and often the translation of that line of poetry gets muddled. It does not say, it takes away what can happen in this next year. It says that it can lessen or deflect, really, the harshness of what can and will happen in the year ahead. So what are these things? What is this prescription, this remedy that can make dealing with the incredible uncertainty of life, the reality of the uncertainty, make it less harsh? Tefillah is prayer, bless you. Tefillah is prayer, connecting inward. Teshuvah is connecting interpersonally, repairing with those we care about, making amends, owning our mistakes, trying to make it better, whether it was last week or 30 years ago. Teshuvah. Tzedakah is the giving of resources, giving of our time, giving of our money to make our world, our community better. It has the root of tzedek, justice, in it. So here we have it. These three that our tradition says that we hold and are moving in us and are our focus all the time. Three parts of what we hold all the time: self, other, world. World, other, self. Other, self-world, world, self-other, right? You can't like separate them that way. It's not linear. They're all three moving in us all the time. And I want to put out to you today that really nothing we do or are or any of our actions are solely about ourselves, are solely about others, or are solely about our world. All of them are in dialogue, in relationship with each other all the time. And our tradition tells us that in our living, we must hold all three all the time and look at each choice from all three. Now, all of us tend to have preferences in this. Maybe we focus more on our interpersonal relationships. Those are paramount to us. Or we focus more on our inner goals, our thriving, our desire for what we want to see for ourselves. Or maybe for you, the world and how you see the world supersedes all three. That becomes paramount. And the other two drift away. Certainly I've seen in my life people so centered on themselves that they forget the world around them. And I've certainly also seen people so centered on the world that they forget about the healthiness of their interpersonal relationships and the healthiness of their own inner lives. But our tradition says you don't get off that easy. All three have to be there. All three are held. So let's look at each. Let's hold each for a moment and see what is it. So let's first look at tzedakah, the giving of our resources, giving of ourselves, giving beyond ourselves into the world. I'm careful, as you probably see, to not use the word charity because it's not the right word here. But the Torah tells us over and over again we're to give. And it does so in two ways. It says that we have to give a set amount. At times, like this is what this situation requires, you give this. And other times it says the giving is what your heart moves you to give. Truma is what your heart moves you to give. I went recently, no, that's not recent, it's like a year and a half, to Salt Lake City for this Jewish-Mormon dialogue. It was really cool. They have a group of living apostles that's part of their church. And the group of us, small group of us, got to meet with one of their apostles. And it was an incredible conversation. Of course, the Jews in the room we were like, all right, let's get down to it. Let's talk about women. Let's talk about gays and lesbians. Like, let's get down. And one of the things that was really moving in hearing about the structure of their church is how much is lay-led, right? Their clergy roles are all community roles. And one of the things that happens in that community is you meet with the bishop and you talk about what's an honest tithing. So that it's no longer just in your own head. You sit with the bishop and think about what would be an honest giving of my resources to the community. That what an interesting model. If we all sat with each other and said, what would this look like, an honest giving of our time and our resources? It's a different model. The Torah tells us to give 10%, right? That's the set amount it tells us. I always say that the way I break that down for people when they're struggling around giving is I say, give about 2% to your Jewish community, or more, but at least a minimum of 2 to your synagogue, and then 8% to all your other causes, all the other things that you're wanting to do. Or you can reverse that and do 8 and 2. But it is a way to think about how do we give. And there's something about a set amount in our giving of our time and our resources that somehow takes it away from the mystery, right? And then there are other times when things happen and you give what your heart moves you to give. Now, let me tell you that in all of these, it seems like it's only about the world, but none of them are just about the third, right? They're about the other two. So for example, the Jewish laws in tzedakah says that even a poor person must give a percentage of their income. Why is that? Because it's not right to deprive a poor person the incredible gift of giving. That the experience of giving that's supposedly about the other person or the world is also about ourselves and who we are on the inside. So you may have nothing, but you have to give because it's not right to take away giving and the experience of giving, because that lessens your dignity. And in fact, in this country, we see percentage-wise that those in poverty give bigger percentages of their incomes to other people struggling than do the middle class and the wealthy. Because often when you've been there, you know to give. So tzedakah is about justice, creating justice in our world. You think it's about the other, it's also about your own inner life. Teshuvah, healing, repairing our relationships, making amends, atoning for hurts, forgiving other people. That's the other piece. And granting forgiveness. This is clearly about other, right? It's also about self. And every year when we start to talk about tshuva at this time of year, oh, but Rabbi, you don't have to forgive everything, do you? Oh yeah, you do, turns out. In South Africa, after all that was done there, the choice was made consciously to have truth and reconciliation committees that said, we're going to hear all of the atrocities, we want them said out loud, and then we're going to tell the people who committed them that they were forgiven. That was how they felt their nation could move forward past apartheid. It was a radical choice. Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, forgiveness does not mean condoning what has been done. It means taking what has happened seriously, not minimizing it, but drawing out the sting in the memory that threatens to poison our entire existence. We are not going to move forward as a nation poisoned by our hatred. An incredible choice. When you decide to keep the person locked up in jail who you will not forgive, you've got to be guarding the gate. You can't leave the prison either. You're guarding the gate. Forgiving another is also about healing ourselves. And this also can absolutely relate to people who have died. Our tradition says at this time of year, you can go to the graveside and let that person know that you forgive them, that you're willing to remove the sting from the memory. Not that you condone it, not that it was okay, but that you're going to remove the sting and let yourself leave the prison along with them. We think that is about the other. It is also about ourselves, and it is about our world. The choice that South Africa made was a choice that affected the whole nation in the healing. Tefillah, prayer, listening inside, becoming practiced at listening to ourselves, to our longings, to our gratitude, to our wishes, to what we want to do and move in the world in a different way. That is prayer. Prayer is a practice that allows us to learn how to listen into ourselves. And then when we pray, what are we praying for most often? Something to happen for those we love. Something to make the world better. When we pray in this tradition over and over, shalom, we are praying for peace for this world. It's a practice of listening in to make the world then better, to make our relationships then better. All three hold all three. Our care of ourselves, our care of each other, and our care of this world.